This is the brand new GoPro Hero 13 Black, and I've been putting it through its paces over the last little while across a wide range of activities to figure out where it works really well and where it still falls a little bit short. Because in many ways, it's as if GoPro looked at the entire GoPro video photo kind of geekery crowd like myself and said, hold my beer. There is a lot of really fascinating features here, and arguably, I would say even one of the biggest changes in the GoPro lineup in many, many years. And of course, as always, this video is not sponsored. I'm gonna tell it like it is, both the good and, as I mentioned, the things that frankly still suck. So with that, number one is the price. The price remains $399, the same as it was in the past. There is, however, a new $199 camera, the GoPro Hero, a refreshed version of that. I'll have a separate review on that down the road. It's not quite available yet. So I've got my notes here because we got a lot to go through. Let's get to the first technical win, if you will, based on everyone complaining last year. GoPro brought back GPS into the Hero 13 Black. You remember last year with the Hero 12, they took it out, and about the exact same time, DJI Insta360 put in secondary remote controls and accessories that you could buy. Now it's back built into the camera versus those ones have accessories. The idea behind GPS is that you can do overlays of data onto your videos and see how fast you're going and stuff like that. And it works fine. That said, I would argue Insta360's implementation where they can pull data from a Garmin watch or an Apple Watch natively straight into that, including cycling power and running metrics and all that kind of stuff, is the direction I really want to see GoPro go. But at the same time, it's cool you don't have to buy an accessory because it's built right into the camera. Now, let's talk about those accessories, because those are the headline feature of the Hero 13 Black, and it is, I'll give them credit, it's pretty cool. I'm not usually a big accessory dude, but this is cool. So basically, there's a whole bunch of new accessories called their HB series accessories. These are accessories, lenses that basically pop on the front, kind of an extension of their mod series they've had for a while. They've had their lens mod and the display mod and other mods. Same concept here, but they snap on the front, and the key difference between this and the previous lens mod is their smarts there, or basically a recognition that when that lens is snapped on the front, the GoPro knows exactly which lens is on there and adjusts settings accordingly. So the very first notable lens is the macro lens. In this, I've been getting some amazing shots, and I'm not a super creative person in the grand scheme of things. And as you can see with some of these shots, it's really a blend of stupidity, like putting it that close to my bike rear derailleur as I'm cruising along at speed, as well as just hoping it works out. This new macro lens can focus down to 4 inches away from the object, or 11 centimeters. And in fact, it actually has a focusing ring on it, so you can adjust that manually to go ahead and get the exact focus that you want. Okay, just a really simple example. You can see the macro lens is detect the top there. I've got the macro up here, and right now I've got it all the way to the flower there. And if you look at the display, what you'll notice here in the back, I might tap it open so it doesn't go to sleep there, is that there's basically pink on the edges right there, meaning that's in focus. As I rotate it this way, you'll see now there's pink on the back of the boat at the deck, indicating that's in focus. And I can just simply rotate it back again. The only thing I don't like though is I wish there was a little marker there so I could see very clearly where I am on this ring when I just look down at a glance from kind of far away. But I can solve that with some whiteout. So the next lens in the HB series is essentially a revamped max lens mod, except now it's called the UltaWide Lens Mod. And of course, physically speaking, it's nearly identical. It still has a 177-degree field of view, so it's got that ultra-wide view, but it's got 3 new modes in it. The first one is a new 1x1 shooting mode. 1x1 shooting modes aren't really new in the action cam world. Other companies have been doing it for a long time. It's good to see GoPro join in on this. So this is an example of the uncropped 1x1 aspect ratio. But you can crop that into something like the 16:9, more of a horizontal layout, or you can go to vertical like this for Instagram or TikTok, etc. Or I can go back again to the uncropped 1x1 and just simply crop it however I see fit, or just use that as is. Here's just a picture from GoPro showing how you can then reframe that 1x1 into horizontal and vertical and any which way you want. But they have 2 new modes as well with the Ultra Lens Mod. The first one is Ultra SuperView, and the second one is Ultra HyperView. Here's the same little section I did one after another, showing the difference there. And the core difference between them is how GoPro stretches that image. As always with HyperView, that wider one, it's going to depend on what shot you want. Some shots look great that way, and some shots just frankly suck that way. But of course, that's the cool part of photography, is finding out where things work and where things don't, and then nailing it. Now, both of those 2 modes also work with the existing max lens mod on the GoPro Hero 13 Black. In fact, all of the existing mods, if you had a Hero 12 or 11 mod, they still work with the Hero 13 just fine and dandy. The only difference though is it's not going to automatically recognize that lens when you snap it on. Speaking of which, let me just show you how that works. To put that lens on, you see the little blue circle there? You just align the circles, you snap it on. It's really that straightforward. And then instantly on the camera, it says, yo, here's the exact lens that you put on there. But it gets even more interesting with the new ND filter set. Now, if you know me in my reviews, whether it's drone reviews and action camera reviews, my general gist here on ND filters is they make most people's videos worse because they're really complex to get just right. If you know what you're doing and you really know what you're doing, then yes, they can be amazing. The vast majority of people, they just screw it up. This seems to solve that. Because of the fact that the camera knows exactly which ND filter it puts on there, once it snaps on, it'll automatically look at the light and tell you whether or not that ND filter is appropriate or not, and whether or not to change it for a higher or lower density filter. That's super cool. Now the whole point of ND filters in this context is mostly introducing motion blur rather than anything else. And again, it tells you how to do that. Obviously people use ND filters for a wide variety of things, but in this context, it's introducing that motion blur. And in fact, there's actually an automatic tuning setting for exactly this, and you can change which settings you want. The last of the new HV series lens is a new anamorphic lens. Now, fortunately, this one is not available now. It's available sometime in 2025, which seems like a pretty broad range to me, but it looks cool. But of course, the idea behind an anamorphic lens is really to go ahead and give that cinematic look to it. It does that in a couple different ways. One is it introduces those lens flares, and then through the lens itself, it's essentially stretching the image onto two different resolutions. Again, I haven't touched this lens. Nobody has. It's not coming until sometime next year, but the price does seem reasonable if you know the prices of anamorphic lenses, like the prosumer versions of anamorphic lenses anyways. This is actually a pretty reasonable deal. Now, let's talk about something that's not an accessory-based thing, something that just comes in the camera, which is 3 new slow-mo modes, but in particular, 3 new burst slow-mo modes. So these are basically offered at 3 different resolutions in different durations. Think of them very similar to a burst photo, except they're full-resolution videos, and then they have different frame rates assigned to them. This allows you to get up to 120 frames per second in 5.3K, which in the past it was limited to 4K there, albeit for only 5 seconds. But keep in mind, you can blend that with a timer on this, like a 3 or 10-second timer, as well as voice commands. So when you're ready to do the epic thing, you just tell your GoPro that you're ready to do that, and then you have a timer or don't, and then you do that. In 5 seconds, you know, I would have loved more time than that, but yeah, it works for most of the things I wanted. If you do want more time, you can step down the resolution though to one of the other 2 options, and then get even more frames per second, but again, you have lower resolution. And again, like I said earlier, I don't have a ton of creativity internally, so I'm just giving you cannonball. That's all I got, folks. Now at this point, you're probably wondering whether or not there's a different chipset in there or something like that. GoPro says they're using the same GP2 chipset they've had for a few years now, and the same camera sensor and all that kind of stuff, which then some of you photo geeks and whatnot, like myself, would be like, well, when do we get a new sensor? When do we get a bigger sensor and things like that? And we don't know the answer to that yet. But I would remind you of one thing that I mentioned in all my action camera reviews, which is that sensor size is only one small piece of the entire imaging pipeline puzzle. We've seen this time after time, whether we have 1-inch sensors or small sensors. What matters far more in an action camera is all the other pieces there, from video stabilization to the processing, etc. You can have a really big sensor, but crap stabilization and everything else, and it's better to have a smaller sensor with better stabilization. So I've included some different kind of samples side by side of the different cameras doing different things to show you what that looks like in, again, different lighting conditions. In night is probably where you notice the biggest difference between the GoPro and its smaller sensor size compared to the Insta360 Ace Pro, as well as the DJI Action 4. However, last year I did an entire night comparison comparing the DJI Action 4 with the Hero 12 Black at night, basically showing side by side the differences there. A lot of people, like myself, certainly like the brighter image of the DJI Action 4, yet a lot of other people, also like myself, found colors more true in the GoPro side. And that's all honestly the same here because those things haven't really changed any. But at the same time, my phone would beat both of those. So yeah, do what you want there. Now next up, GoPro is a new mounting design that essentially steals the best parts of everyone else's mounting design. Now the good news first off to begin with is you still have the mounting fingers, standard GoPro mount like you've always had. This is still the recommended mount if you're doing high speed, high vibration activities like attaching it outside of a plane or outside of a car or motorcycle with vibrations and things like that. Then the next piece is you got the tripod mount in the middle there, #1/20 tripod mount. However, if you put the 2 flat like this, just like that, and you have the new GoPro magnetic mount, you can simply snap it in place like this, as well as unclip it like this. And some of you are like, DJI had that for a couple years, and so did Insta360, and that is true, except one core difference. In the case of both of those cameras, it only would allow orientation one way. If you went to turn it this way, it wouldn't work. And on a thing like this, it doesn't really matter because it's small and you can turn around. But if you have various mounts on vehicles and stuff like that, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Now, of course, there's one more downside here. This does increase what is effectively the stack height, making it higher up, which is why you can still, again, use those mounting fingers. That said, if you have a Hero 12, there is a mount I've been using for like a year now, since last year. I think it's by Alonzi and Falcam, and that mount is essentially this exact thing. In fact, it's so identical that I went to GoPro and I'm like, are you partnering with them? Because this looks an awfully like pretty much identical to theirs. And they said, no, it's their own IP internally. Okay, GoPro, if you say so. Now, you may have been noticing something on the side of my GoPro here, which are these 8 little dots for charging. Now, this is a separate accessory door, so this is not the stock door. Here's a picture of the stock door. This is a separate accessory door and allows you to charge the GoPro externally forever as long as you want. And this housing door is fully waterproof, so if you take it to the beach or something like that, you don't have to worry about killing your GoPro afterwards. I've been loving the charging cable primarily for long runtime stuff, like doing some of the night star stuff there, where you just want to leave the camera out all night long, connected to a USB battery pack, and you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's awesome. Now, of course, by now, some of you are wondering, with all these cool changes, does it break compatibility with existing accessories? And the answer is no. Everything across the board is compatible. So, for example, I went diving right here. I took the Hero 13, put it in the Hero 12 case, and it's perfectly fine. And the reason is the exterior shell of this is identical to the past, so it's totally compatible across the board. If you want to put existing lenses on this, that works fine. There's no problems with any of that. That also goes for the media mod, the display mod, the little light mod on top. All that stuff is all totally compatible. However, the new HB series lenses for the Hero 13 do not work on the Hero 12 and prior. There's like a little bit of a metal there on the lens attachment point that blocks it from rotating in. Like, you think you're gonna get there, and then you're like, oh, it doesn't work. Now, speaking about compatibility, there's some expansions there. Notably, this camera is compatible with this microphone here, the DJI Mic 2. So GoPro has basically expanded out some of their Bluetooth spec compatibility to make it so it now pairs with the Mic 2 in Bluetooth mode, allowing me to go ahead and have direct from the DJI Mic 2 into the camera, which is how I use it. I use it with the lav right there, so you can just sounds a little bit better, but otherwise it's basically good to go across the board. In fact, you can even see the mic volume on the screen just like you would have with the media mod. Now, here's a great example of the DJI Mic connected to the GoPro Hero 13 Black using Bluetooth. I'm out on the ferry boat deck. The wind is kind of moving past me pretty quickly right now, and I have a lav mic on connected to the DJI Mic like I always do for all of my stuff. And it sounds probably really, really good to you, despite the fact that I'm like 10 feet away from the camera right now. So there's no way you'd be able to hear me otherwise. Just to demonstrate that, I'm going to turn off the mic. And now I'm speaking at the exact same loudness level with the microphone off. You can see there's nothing on right now. You can hear what it sounds like this far away. Now, the next new item is, if you look at the front of the camera, you're going to notice this little kind of grate there. That is a new heat sink to go ahead and reduce overheating potential. In fact, GoPro this year around actually has an entire chart they included in the media kit. You can see it right here, that shows you the differences from an overheating standpoint. For those not familiar with the entire overheating debacle, it's like YouTuber like catnip. There's nothing that YouTubers in the action camera space love more than to put like a YouTube face on and be concerned about overheating on an action camera. And the reality is that every action camera today in the last few years, as long as you have airflow, in other words, air moving over the camera, it's not going to overheat in virtually any mode. Like, all of them are really good, even to like 100+ degrees Fahrenheit, it's great. Where it's problematic though is so-called low airflow or no airflow scenarios. Those are things like mounting inside a car dashboard, filming a basketball game outside in the heat and the sun, putting it on a boat where there's no wind whatsoever and you're filming yourself for hours. That is the problem for most action cameras. And so I've been testing GoPro's claims in this area, and I'll be honest, I'm impressed. GoPro has won every single overheating test I've done on the Hero 13 Black with equivalent settings on both, beating DJI and beating Insta360 before it overheats. And the cool part is that all these cameras now will tell you when it overheats. In the case of both GoPro as well as Insta360, when it overheats, it'll tell you right then and there, and it'll also tell you after you turn the camera back on again in case you missed it the first time around. Either way, the numbers are looking really good at this point in time. By far the best I've ever seen from GoPro compared to any of their past action Action cameras. However, the thing that's not looking super great is this stat right here showing how many of you are actually subscribed to the channel. It's a kind of a low number, like it's not a great number in the grand scheme of things. If you were to hit subscribe, it'd be awesome, or just honestly watch the video to the end. That's the thing YouTube cares about the most. The other thing people are probably going to care about is the new Enduro battery with the GoPro. So for the first time in a number of years, GoPro has changed the battery on the Hero 13 Black. It's no longer compatible with previous batteries. It is now a bigger battery which has longer run times. It's frankly as simple as that. Here's the chart comparing the run times side by side to the past, and I'm seeing those results in my testing as well. Like I've kind of handpicked a few different ones just to test out, again with airflow in these cases, because those are airflow battery tests versus the previous ones are no airflow. And yeah, they're holding water there. In fact, that gets to the next item, which is that the battery now charges roughly twice as fast as the past, which is good. But remember earlier on I said there were some sucky things about the GoPro? This is still one of them. Twice as fast as the past is still twice as slow as DJI's battery. Here's a chart I made where I plotted the battery percentage over the course of the charge time for the GoPro. In the case of the DJI Action 4, it charges its battery to 80% in 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, the GoPro is barely at 40% with its fast charger, or even less than that, 30% without its fast charger. That said, one thing to keep in mind about the battery difference between GoPro and DJI in particular is around performance at colder temperatures. That's an area where if you were to take both a GoPro and a DJI Action 4 and stick them in a freezer for a couple hours, just like pretending you were outside skiing with it on your helmet for a couple hours, and then to press the start button, the Action 4 from DJI won't start. It just simply won't. The GoPro will start. That's different battery design in there, which may make up some of those differences. Nonetheless, GoPro, please just make the battery charge faster. Next up for those photo geeks, they've added HLG HDR video, 10-bit recording in RC2100 color space with a wide color gamut. This is something that, again, they're really targeting kind of more of the cinematic Hollywood side of it, where they're going to use GoPros here and there, which of course many TV and Hollywood productions use GoPros in all sorts of scenarios, and this just gives them a little bit more flexibility. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's just something you can turn on the settings there quick and easy. Now we got a few last quickies here, but they're not bad ones. They're just little things that people really wanted. You can now customize the names of your presets. You could customize them in the past, but you couldn't actually change the name to be whatever you want. Next up, there's a handy little change to how quick capture works. Quick capture is when you have the camera off like this. I press the button once, a couple seconds later it turns on the camera, there you go, and immediately starts recording. Now, if I were to hit the stop button, in the past it would shut off, but now I have two options. I can press record one more time, it's gonna immediately start a brand new recording. You're like, oh, you know what, I actually want that to record after all. You can do that. I hit stop again. This time I say, you know what, I don't want it to turn off. I just want it to go into a low power state. Hit the side mode button, and you're done. Next, GoPro says they've sped up the Wi-Fi transfer speeds by 40% by going to Wi-Fi 6. Yeah, it seems faster, I guess. They also increased the weight slightly, though, of the camera from 154 grams to 159 grams. You don't notice that, frankly, at all. And then last but not least, they made it crash less. No, literally, that's literally what they talked about in the media presentation. They gave three numbers that were kind of interesting, starting with the Hero 12. So in the Hero 12, GoPro never talked about this, but in the Hero 12, they basically refactored the entire code base from the ground up, was their exact wording. And with that, they saw a reduction in support tickets around crashes by 99% from the Hero 12 compared to the previous cameras. And they saw a 60% reduction in thermal shutdowns and a 67% reduction in camera freeze-ups. So camera freeze-ups can be lots of different things. It can often be the SD card, but it can be a gazillion other things. So GoPro mentioned that because there's been a year now since the Hero 12 came out, and they thought that was a good time to, like, the proof is in the pudding sort of thing, because obviously plenty of people have complained about GoPro crashes in all sorts of different scenarios, and this was their proof of that pudding. And they said in the Hero 13 they stepped it down even further to try to reduce those last remaining chunks. Again, the proof will be in the pudding a year from now or something like that. Okay, so there you go, your entire look at all the new features on this camera and where they work well and where they don't. I've got a complete beginner's guide coming up over the next couple of days that'll walk through how to use this camera from start to finish. So if you're new to a GoPro, or if you're just a long-term GoPro user, I'm gonna talk about all the cool little features and how they actually work in real life in a much, much longer video. So again, hit subscribe so you see that as soon as it drops. With that, have a good one.